Malia, I've already said your name wrong, Josephine, from currently in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, and I have been there briefly, and she is a facilitator, and she's helping facilitators find jobs, and she's created a new platform. So I'm pretty excited about hearing a little bit about that. So what we're going to do in this part A of the interview is full disclosure. Malia has already interviewed me, and it was such a great interview. And I thought, I asked her if she'd be willing to do it again. So thank you, Malia. And we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, because that's one of the big questions that we all get, is like, how do I get the jobs? And how do I find the kinds of jobs that I want? And what is it like being an entrepreneur? Should I be an in-house facilitator or an internal or external facilitator? And those are really great questions, and they're very, very personal. So Malia's I'm going to ask you a little bit about what you've been doing with your platform and how you hope to help facilitators and clients find each other. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to go into part A of the interview, where we'll look just a very quick overview of what I've discovered over the last few decades. And then if you're interested, we'll have part B of the interview, which gets into a little bit more detail. So over to you, Malia.
Awesome. Thanks, Barbara. Yeah, so I'll start off with just a brief introduction. I've been doing professional facilitation for almost 7 years, and really in a variety of facilitator positions. I've been in community engagement positions for city governments. I've done like facilitative project management for nonprofits. I was in a strategic planning consulting firm, and my most recent iteration has been a freelancer offering design sprints, strategic plans, and deliberative process. And so it's a little about my background, and like moving into the company facilitation jobs. Really, like throughout my professional journey, I really struggled to find jobs and opportunities that like advanced my facilitation career. And I had wished that there were resources out there that would help me understand some of the questions you already posed, like, where do I find facilitation jobs? What are the diversity of jobs and gigs that exist out there for facilitators? And like, what industries are looking for facilitators? Is this a marketable skill? And if it is, how do I market it? And so those kind of struggles are what motivated me to found the company Facilitation Jobs. And so really, like, for years, I would Google facilitation jobs looking for my dream position. And that's what I hope that's what the platform I want it to be for the next generation of facilitators, is really a space that's supporting people with finding jobs, gigs, volunteer positions, apprenticeships, and resources like mentorship. And we have an ebook, we have a quiz, we have a training calendar. Really, that's all there to serve people with advancing their facilitation career. So that's a little bit about the platform and the company, and we can go more into it later, and I'll transfer the attention back onto you, because the questions I'm asking you are all about what the mission is of our company. So are you ready for the question?
I am, and I'm so excited to hear. And this is a service that's long been needed, and I'm so glad you figured that out.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. So we'll first start off with, how did you define your services and the niche that you serve?
Let's see now. I initially wanted just to be a facilitator, and so that's what I thought to do. But I realized quite quickly when I started out in the 1990s that it wasn't a very well-known profession, and I needed to offer other things. So I was motivational speaking, I was training in facilitation, and I was facilitating. And eventually I got to be just mostly facilitating. And then more recently, I've been doing a lot more training and mentoring. So I dropped the speaking after a couple of years. I wasn't half decent at it, but it was so stressful. And so those are the services I offer. And that I would define facilitation as something that people, they have the content. I don't have any of their content. I'm simply there to guide them through processes, activities, deep connection work, and deep idea sharing, to help them come up with a product that is uniquely theirs.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Awesome. And maybe in the next part B, we can go into like, what were the actual key words you used when marketing your services? Because that's a big thing people ask me, like, how do I actually say what I'm doing besides facilitation? But we can put that on the side. So how did you find clients and gigs and jobs?
In the very early stages, I'd say in the first 3 years, I basically said to myself, I will ask a lot of people, who do you know that might need a facilitator? And then I'd have to usually explain what a facilitator was. And people would offer me, not-for-profits were usually the ones that knew about facilitation more than any other sector, government as well. And I started out in Canada, subsequently had a big part of my career in the US and then back to Canada now. So Canada was a little bit more advanced in terms of their understanding of what facilitation was and how to use it. So that was helpful for me. But I realized, can you ask the question again? Because I think I'm going off on a track.
No, it's totally fine. How did you find clients and gigs?
Yeah. So I was really struck by the first client I got was with a not-for-profit. It was Child and Family Services, and it was helping immigrant refugees have conversations about how to take care of their children in this new culture that they were being immersed in. And they had come out of trauma, and they needed to really have some support and feel safe in the support that is being offered by this not-for-profit and other government and government agencies as well. And so by doing that job, and it was a very low paying job, that woman was very kind to me and kind of told me about other people. And so sometimes it helps to take, low paying jobs or no paying jobs just to get your name out there. I did start a group of people that I wanted to hang out with and to explore facilitation. And I wasn't expecting to get jobs from them, but that actually helped me find jobs, because by bringing these people together, they had connections in a wider number of sectors and a wider number of populations, communities that I did. And so a job would come along, and for whatever reason, they'd often bring me in because they wanted to work with me, or they'd offer it to me because they couldn't do it. They trusted me. So I think that building trust with people, being generous with people, it's really about getting out there and just telling people what you want to do, not what you've done, but even if you've never done it, what you want to do, and then being as generous as you can with them when they, if you see a resource and speaking with them, you realize, oh, this person would really love this resource. Then you pass the resource on to them, and then eventually they think of you when something relevant comes along. One other way that I used to get jobs is I'd say to some of my colleagues, if you're willing to give me a couple of names of people that you think might be really good fit for, this is what I want to do. I was very much into social justice. So I get a lot of referrals to larger not-for-profits. Let me turn that phone off. Oh, I forgot to do that. And so that helped a lot too. They would give me names of fairly senior people in large not-for-profits. And it might take me a couple of months to get an interview with them. But I remember one was Volunteers of America. Volunteers of America. And I think it took me about 2 months to get an interview with this person. But when she interviewed me, like I walked out of the door with a $10,000 job. Now that I'd never had a $10,000 job. In those days, that was a lot of money. That'd be like getting a $50,000 job today. And so I went, oh my goodness, and I waited 2 months, but it was one interview, So just those are a couple of small ways that I found the jobs.
I love that. Okay, next question. How did you choose to price your services?
Initially, I started out doing a budget and deciding how much money do I need to earn to live at a reasonable level myself. How many jobs would I have to get at what price? And so it's like very, very sort of logical. Okay, I want, X number of dollars per year. And I actually set it at 50,000 gross a year at that time, which isn't enough these days in the culture I live in. But it seemed like a lot to me at the time. It was close to what I had had as a salary, as a salaried employee. And I thought, okay, well, that'd be 10 jobs at 5,000 each, or, 20 jobs at 2,500 each. And so that's kind of how I priced myself. And I thought, well, in a salary job, I was getting paid $45 an hour, more or less. So maybe if I double that, because I remember my consulting firm used to do 2.2 times they charged me out at 2.2 times my rate. My hourly rate that they were paying me. So I kind of used that, and I looked up a lot of books, flawless consulting, and if I was hiring people, what percentage should I keep, what percentage should I offer. And so I think it's good to do local market research and see what the market will bear. But typically these days, I would say most facilitators are charging between 150 to 250 an hour, or 2,000 a day would be kind of in the US Canadian market. That's kind of what people are. Obviously, other world markets are vastly different.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then the last question is, what are some best practices that you want to share when it comes to professional facilitation and growing your career?
It's such a beautiful question. I'd like to go into more depth in part B of our interview, but just off the top of my head, I will say, I think really try to find ways to enjoy yourself. This work is complex and demanding. It requires a lot of self-development work, self-awareness. You're working with groups in pain often. You're working with multiple layers of organizations often. You're called in because they cannot do what they want to do. And that requires that you have to be very present. And so best practices are to have, take up meditation if you can, take up time doing things that you really enjoy. And I know it's very counterproductive, but really have as much of a balanced life as you can. When you go out on a gig, make sure that you've got the nourishment you need, that you're not just like wolfing down something that's got too much sugar or too much fat in it. It's not going to keep your mind clear and accurate. Anything to keep your mind super clear, to keep yourself present, to feel connected to other people. I used to do a lot of planning with graphics and collages and pictures because that made me happy. I'd bring flowers to my event because I could look at them when I was puzzled and they would inspire me. You have to do what will make you happy and content and clear, and nothing else really matters. If you do that, as well as learn some really good tools and methodologies, then you'll do well as a facilitator because you're present, you know your stuff, you've prepared, you do it with colleagues that you enjoy working with, ideally, so that you're not alone. And you take clients that are not unreasonable. And whenever you have an interview with a client, that interview is as much for you as for the client. You're not just trying to sell yourself. You're trying to assess, is this client going to be good for me? Am I able to actually help them and feel good about how I help them? If you get little red danger signals, and I don't know if that's appropriate, but just like something in your gut kind of makes you clench, then that's probably a good reason to say, I don't think I'm the best person for this job, but tell me a little bit more about who you're looking for, and I'll see if I can refer someone to you. Or let me refer you to Malia's platform. Put all the clients that you don't want in Malia's platform.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, so why don't we pause here? We've kind of given you the big picture, and in the next part of our interview, we'll go into a little bit more depth about both what Malia is doing and some of her questions. We'll also answer some of the challenges that I faced and some of the milestones along the way.